Ladies and gents, welcome to the John Harris Podcast, the conversational podcast covering all things unimportant, where almost no topic is off limits and enthusiasm is seriously encouraged. From the sublime to the ridiculous, we've got you covered. Let us know where you're listening from using the hashtag the John Harris Podcast, or follow me on Instagram at the original John Harris. So let's get going. Today's guest is, well, pretty incredible. Serial fundraiser, the embodiment of resilience, cancer survivor, and still Mr. Enthusiastic. It's a huge honor of mine to welcome Danny D. Brabander. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me on. And what an introduction that is, eh?
I try. How are you, mate? Thank you for joining.
No, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
As we've touched on very, very briefly, before we get into your story and all about you, we're going to go straight into Quickie Picky. Nice, relaxed. I think it's 9 quickfire questions. Learn a little bit about you and break the ice, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Happy days. Question 1. I actually asked this to another inspirational person I spoke to. You are many people's, but who is your inspiration?
Wow. I've got a few, to be honest, but I would probably say, oh God, that's a hard question. I would probably say my inspiration is actually like my family and that are in there, but I would actually say it's someone called Janie Thomas. Right. And I met Janie from supporting Manchester United. I used to sit next to her, and she had a real battle with cancer, but she was like, she was just the epitome of positivity, and nothing would stop it. And I kind of, when I was diagnosed with cancer myself, I kind of followed Janie's lead. So I'll probably say it was her. Yeah, thinking about it. But yeah.
Lovely for her to listen to that. Where would you go if you could be invisible for a day?
Wow, these are some questions. Where would I go? Trying to think. I'm trying not to be too seedy, really, but yeah, I don't know. I'd probably, I'd like to be like you know how they say you'd like to be like what did he say? A fly on the wall, so to speak. I'd probably say, I don't know, maybe, as I say, I'm a big football fan. Maybe into changing rooms, see what they talk about, that sort of thing. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I'll go with.
I like you didn't opt for like Megan Fox's bathroom or anything.
Well, no, I don't. It's what I was thinking, but I just couldn't say it.
What's the naughtiest thing you did in your childhood?
Probably jumped on when I was about 6 years old, when my cousin jumped on on like this little bus that used to run into town, and we both jumped on it. Yeah, and we used to do it as a regular occurrence on a weekday until we were caught by my cousin's granddad. Yeah, so
amazing. Which TV sitcom family would you be a member of?
Possibly the royal family, because I do like my couch. But no, I'd probably say Everyone Loves Raymond, because that would be one funny family to be in.
Good, yeah, very good. What's the last thing you drank?
I just had a few drinks of water. Yeah,
fair enough. What is your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve. Probably, I'm very football orientated so far. I'll probably say Liverpool fans thinking they're the best team in the world. Probably. Oh. And don't tell me you're a Liverpool fan as well.
I am. That's fine. We'll just brush past it as if you never said it.
Just edit it out.
Yeah. Who would play you? You're quite a storied man, as we will learn. But who would play you in a movie?
God, I'd have to go for one of my favourite actors. I have to say, I was just actually watching it before, Top Gun. I'll go for Tom Cruise.
What a film! And coming on that, what is your favourite movie quote?
I'll lead with Top Gun again. As I say, it's in my mind, so I'll say I feel the need for speed, I would say.
Fair enough. And last one, this is one I ask everybody now. If you are running for office, what would your campaign slogan be?
I'll go with my Team DDB slogan, which is clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose.
Good man.
Quite boring, but
straight off the tongue. Right, so that's quickie picky over. Cancer survivor. Tell us about your journey. Obviously, I've seen a little bit on some of the communications we've had, but for those listening who don't know, just tell us your story. It's been an absolute whirlwind from what I've learned. So tell us about how it came about, how you learned about it, and everything you've been through.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 37. In January 2019.
Right.
Was feeling unwell probably for 8-9 months prior to that. Heavy feeling in my stomach, feeling lethargic, tired. I kind of put off going for blood tests for quite a while, and then I actually passed blood in my stool, which led me to go through the relevant tests. Ended up having a colonoscopy, which is the camera up your backside, which isn't pleasant. And that basically pointed out that I had bowel cancer, or they suspected. And then after further test, it was shown I had bowel cancer, but it was stage 4, which means it spread to another organ in your body, and it spread to my liver. So my whole world kind of collapsed at that point. So, and then the journey I've kind of been on since then has been eventful, to say the least. I was when I obviously got my plan in place, and I was told that I would go on to chemotherapy rather than an operation. And after my first cycle of chemotherapy, I actually did a park run the day after, thinking, "Oh, this is a walk in the park." and then literally 4 or 5 days later, every time I'd stand up or move, I'd just get this real burning sensation in my throat and a real ache in my arm. Ended up going up to A&E, and he said that I was heading towards a major heart attack. They put me on for an ECG in A&E, and next thing is the doctor and nurses were rushing around me, and he said I was heading towards a major heart attack. If it hadn't gone in, I would have had one. And it was because I was actually cardiotoxic to the chemotherapy, which means it had an adverse reaction to my heart.
So it was nothing to do with the park run. It was because of the day before. Right. Okay.
Yeah. As I say, for the first few days, I was absolutely fine and thought, "Oh, this is a breeze." And to be fair, some people who have chemotherapy do find it to be okay, and other people have real bad reactions. But obviously, after 3 or 5 days, I had a really bad reaction. And they said, thankfully I got in, like I say, and then they said for me to stop chemotherapy. And what we'll do is we'll go for operations. So they put me in for an operation on my bowel and liver in May, only for a few weeks later for it to get even more eventful.
Wow. You say even more eventful. It's pretty eventful already.
Yeah.
So, and this has all happened in a fairly short period of time, right? And you're 37, young, diagnosis at that age.
Yeah.
Terrifying. I've never been through it, but I imagine you just have all of the thoughts about everything. I imagine it's completely terrifying, wasn't it?
It was. And I mean, they do say when you get your plan in place, you do feel more comfortable once initially when you're first told. There's so much that goes through your head, and so much in the way of fear, I'm gonna die, and that all comes in. But once you get your plan in place, it gives you something to focus on, and you think, right, I'm gonna be okay here. But then obviously, like I said, my plan didn't go to plan because I ended up in hospital 5 days later. And then, as I say, probably I'd gone from running the park run one Saturday to the week later coming out of hospital, and I was struggling to walk around the block because the heart had such an impact on my body. I slowly built up my strength, and then started to feel just unwell in myself. And I was just, because obviously I had partial blockage in my bowel because it's where the growth was. And then what happened was my bowel actually blocked, and I got really unwell, ended up again in hospital. So what they said was, this was in April. So they said, you're only a month away from surgery. What we'll do is we'll put a stent in. So it basically opens your bowel up to allow food to pass through. And this will just be, it's a standard thing. There's a 2% chance it might perforate your bowel. Let's do it. So they put the stent in. I was on the operating table. And then all of a sudden just got rolled out to a recovery bored, and all of a sudden
Right.
just got the most excruciating pain. And the stent had actually perforated my bowel. So all the remnants of my stomach were leaking into my bowel, into my stomach line and so on. So they said, we're going to have to do emergency surgery. They said I'm going to end up with a stoma. And that was that. And it was weird because before that happened, before I went down, I started to text people, and I kind of had a bad feeling about it. And obviously things were going wrong from the heart to the blockage.
Yeah.
And I was messaging people just saying like, oh, love you, and, et cetera, et cetera. And then I remember going down with like my family and my partner Jane, and we went down and he said goodbye, and it just didn't feel right. And then, what happened was I ended up, because all the stuff was leaking out because my bowel had perforated and all the rubbish was leaking out, so to speak, I ended up contracting sepsis, and all my major organs started to shut down. Albeit I didn't know I was in an induced coma.
Yeah, right. Oh wow.
Yeah, but my family were told. I wouldn't make the evening, and that was because all my organs were shutting down. So I think I was in an induced coma for about 4 days, something like that, before I come round. And thankfully, my body started to fight it. So,
I mean, fight or flight is very much a real thing, and it sounds like you were definitely are a fighter. But from your family's perspective, they were. I mean, this is all pre-COVID, isn't it? So they were in the hospital with you in the coma, I'd imagine, talking to. How was that? Obviously, you've spoken to them since, I'm sure, at length about this. How was that for them? Because I'd imagine terrifying for you, but also heartbreaking, terrifying for them, because it feels like at every corner you've turned to try and get better, the one thing that really didn't want to go wrong has gone wrong.
Yeah.
You've been unlucky and then unlucky and then unlucky. And it's crazy.
Definitely. I mean, I think I had the easy job because, like I say, I was in an induced coma, but for them, they kind of felt helpless in it, and like I say, the stories they tell me now of the upset, and that, they tell me they were in this room and so come and just said things aren't looking good, and then the feedback they were getting from the nurses wasn't good, and like I say, they just felt helpless, I think. So it was really tough for them, for my mum and dad and my brother, and like I say, Jane, and like I got a stepson Josh, and he kind of ran off, and he was like really upset. He just couldn't deal with it. And then and as I say, thankfully I come round. There was a funny story with that, because when I was in the induced coma of that weekend, I don't know if you remember, it was a few years back, it was a really hot, sunny, like Easter weekend.
Right.
And United played at Everton and they got beat 4-0. So for me, I don't have any recollection of that day. So every time an Evertonian says we beat you 4-0 that day, I say, what game? And
I don't remember that.
Well, it doesn't exist to me anyway. So
yeah, fair.
so just always see the funny side and things. But yeah, for me, then it was into the recovery once I come round, and it was like delusions of grandeur and stuff like that, because I was on so much pain medication. I thought the hospital was out to get me, and that was a horrible experience in itself, because I was trying to get into my head what quite had happened, but I couldn't make the difference between reality and not. I thought I was in a fake hospital. I was seeing things on the wall. As I say, it was just a horrendous experience. At one point, like, I was convinced I was going to die. I ended up pulling out all of my equipment out of my nose and my, like, you have the NG tube in. I pulled that out, and it was horrendous, terrifying experience. And I think just from speaking to different people since, it's not uncommon to have that when you go through such things. And I think even COVID patients have it as well, I believe, from what I was told from someone in the critical care team. So
and that's a side effect of the drugs and the painkillers and the management that you were on, all of that cocktail that you will have been on mixed together. And that's the side effect that gave you this delusions of grandeur, like you said. Yeah. That's crazy, because obviously your care at that stage is incredibly, like to the medical plan to a T. Yeah. Because of what you've gone through. but it's created this thing that makes you just pull it out. I mean,
yeah.
How did that stop? How did that end?
It kind of all come to a head one night, and it was what I could see. I always say the story, like where there was like a mirror in the room, I thought it was like a window to see outside, and I could see all sorts of things happening in this window throughout the time. But I could see like a crowd of people waiting outside, and it was as if they were coming to watch me die. And I remember when I pulled it out, I'd actually waited. Because this is where it jars the line between reality and not, because partner was in the sleep next to me, and I waited for her to fall asleep before I ripped the stuff off, because that's where I was waiting to die, when she'd fallen asleep in my head.
Right.
So I could see like my surgeon standing outside, the whole thing. But then it was almost like, look, it's a mirror, and it was just weird. It all kind of just clicked at what I was seeing, and I don't know whether they adjusted the pain relief when I pulled the stuff out, but it just felt like everything just come to reality to say, yeah, what are you thinking here? And then there was that, and then once I'd kind of got through that, the challenge then become, because I'd like dropped down to under 10 stone in weight, and I literally, it just completely wiped out my body. And I remember getting a shower for the first time, and I was unrecognizable from what I could see. And I also, before that, the pretty much to walk from scratch again, because the sepsis had just literally wiped out my whole body.
Yeah.
I remember kind of getting out of bed for the first time thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. And literally, I didn't have the strength, or I couldn't do anything. It was just, so the physios was like training me out to actually walk again. It was just mad.
Because you got the same brain, you think your body can do the same things, and you think, right,
Yeah.
hop out of bed. How much weight did you lose? You say down to 10 stone, or just less than 10 stone? How much weight did you lose?
Probably about, because I think I was in hospital, probably about 4 stone
that fell off you.
But fell off within probably like a week, probably the 4 days I was in the induced coma, just fell off, because my body must have been, my body must have been using it all to kind of fight sepsis and so on. And obviously, and I was getting fed through a tube, so to speak, so I'm getting my nutrients that way. But yeah, so it was the whole thing, and I think I was in for about 6 weeks, all in all. As I say, the care I got from the critical care team at Arrow Park on the Wirral was just unbelievable, and they helped get me through. And I come out, and then it was literally mindset into, right, we're back to fighting cancer again. Now they'd removed it from my bowel and given me an ileostomy stoma during the emergency surgery. So that was a box tick, but I still had it in my liver, and it was a case of, right, in my mind, it was let's go and have liver surgery now. So
it was weird, because it felt like, when you're telling that story, it was almost like the cancer was kind of forgotten because of everything else you had to go through, and then you thought, well, actually, no, I've still got cancer to deal with here. I must say, my wife's she's got a temporary ileostomy at the moment. But she was on the stoma ward. I don't know if that was it, but the Arrow Park guys are absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
We are incredibly grateful to them for what she's been through, and it's nothing compared to what you've been through, but the people of that hospital are world class.
Yeah, they're brilliant. Yeah,
from start to finish.
Yeah. I can't speak highly enough. I'm still very much in touch with like the critical care team, and go back to visit them, and they sometimes attend some of the events I've got. And as I say, like your wife say, we can't speak more highly of them, really. So yeah, and then it was back to fighting cancer, and that's when it then took another blow, because where I thought I just had it in my liver, obviously my kind of immune system had dropped massively from having sepsis, which is the worst thing for cancer. And they had more scans, and then that showed on the scans that the cancer had actually also now spread to my stomach lining, to my peritoneum.
Right.
And if you Google that it's bad enough if you Google stage 4 liver cancer, but if you bowel to liver, but if you Google like peritoneal cancer as well, it's like literally it's saying you'll have, I think the maximum is 6 months to live. And it was just that I had to then start to process. I'd literally been through such a fight with sepsis, to then be told that it was a huge blow. And as I said, it did take me a good few weeks to get my head around it, and so on. So
it feels like at every stage you're being told, no, this is the end. And it's and you keep coming back from it. And I touched earlier on Fight or Flight. This is next level because everything is end game conversation.
Yeah.
And the strength of mind you must have is like insane. It's so impressive that you're positive, and we'll come on to all the stuff you do now, all the fundraising, everything, later on. But
yeah,
it's awesome because you've just been knocked down, and you're still this chatty, positive, resilient, smiling bloke, and I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it just I have learned, I don't know, throughout it. It's, I think mindset is a strong thing, and as I say, I'm not to 1 minute say I haven't had down moments. I've walked around the park and I've been thinking about my own funeral, and I go out with family and friends. I sometimes think they're taking photos of me to remember me, and that's all that's going through my head.
Yeah.
But that said, I think with mindset, it's just, I think the positivity has helped me a lot, and I think it's allowed me to channel into other areas and turn my negative into a positive. I mean, at that time when I got told I went to my stomach line, all the oncologist literally said, if this, because my chemotherapy options were limited, I was first of all worried that I wasn't going to have any chemotherapy options, and then he basically said, we're going to try you on this, but if it doesn't work, you're literally looking at months left to live. But once I started the chemotherapy, my mindset was never, it's not going to work. I was always positive that it was going to work. And then I got my first scan after 3 months of having that treatment, and I got told I've got shrinkage in the areas. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, okay, what's next? I needed to research where I go from here. I couldn't just sit on chemotherapy. There was other options in terms of surgery. And that's where then I got referred to the Christie. And since that moment on, it's kind of been on an upward curve, in opposed to the downward, which we were just talking about, in terms of everything was blow after blow.
And the Christie's a cancer-specific hospital in Manchester, right?
Yeah, so I originally treated the Clatterbridge, and they did wonderful things. But for me, because I had it in my stomach line, and the Christie are like world renowned for that area, peritoneal specialists. So I got referred there for what you call hip-back surgery, which is basically where they open you up, remove the cancer, and then they put chemotherapy in a 40 degrees temperature. But when I got referred there, they said I'd responded that well to chemotherapy that it had actually gone from a stomach line, and we recommend you have liver surgery. So that was the first kind of step. And that happened in February 2020. And I got quite lucky with that, because obviously COVID happened like a month or so after.
Yeah.
So I managed to I had 60% of my liver removed.
Wow.
Where the cancer was removed. And then, it was into like COVID, recovering from that, went for a few scans middle of last year. And then that said, unfortunately, you've had a reoccurrence in your stomach lining. Which, as I say, was probably the only down. But from that, they said, we'll give you some chemotherapy, and the plan will be, once we give you the chemotherapy, if you respond to the chemotherapy, okay, we'll then look to give you the hip-back surgery, which is what I was talking about. Right. And that's where it led me to in January of this year. I've just literally had hip-back, had that surgery. I've literally had my spleen removed. I've had my gallbladder removed. I don't have a belly button anymore. My stomach's a bit of a mess, but thankfully I'm now 2 scans along the line. I get scanned again next month, scanned every 3 months, but I'm 2 scans down. And as it stands at the moment, I've got no visible cancer, no visible disease. So it's quite miraculous, really. So
miraculous is the word. That is fantastic. I'm so happy. And long may that continue forever.
Thank you, mate.
Wow. I just said just before we started this, I've actually removed the ad breaks. I wish I could go back to them to take a minute to breathe, because that is some story. Have you? I mean, it must be you must have had appointments in the hundreds.
Yeah.
Of people. I mean, one of the questions I wrote down at the very start, actually, which I will come to now, was You said you ignored feeling unwell and whatever for a little while at the start because nobody thinks feeling unwell for a couple of weeks could mean life-changing cancer, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people who've had similar feelings like that now, having gone through what you've gone?
Yeah, so I mean, it's why I'm so what's the word? I'm so keen and so I'm passionate really about raising awareness for bowel cancer and others really. It's just, if you don't feel right in yourself and that goes on for a period of time, then you do need to go and get checked out. And
yeah,
you know, I put some powerful posts on social media and I've had some great feedback where people have actually said, I've seen your post, and because of that post, I've gone out and actually gone to get checked out. And so it shows that awareness is key. And if you can post in a powerful way and put, you know, sometimes it's not nice for my family to see some of the images I'm putting on because it takes you back to where it was. But in the same tone, sometimes you've got to put powerful images on because that is what resonates with people, and people see it and say, well, actually, I haven't felt too good for 2 months, so I'll go and get checked out. And it's all, for me, it's all about not wanting someone else to go through what I have these past few years, really.
Yeah.
So,
and it's, I know what you mean by not nice to look at, but if it helps one person, then job done, isn't it? Because and it isn't a taboo. It needs to be, because this is life, and it's happened to you. It could happen to somebody else, and if you can help, that's amazing. And you talked earlier about going back in and in touch with the critical care team and stuff. Am I right in assuming you've probably got some lifelong connections from the things you've been through and the people that have helped care?
Yeah, absolutely. From there to other bowel cancer patients who I'm in like a support group on Facebook. I've met some good friends through that. Sadly, some of them are no longer with us. There's a girl called Callie Smith, a guy called Sean O'Brien. All had, you know, similar circumstances to me, but unfortunately they didn't make it. It wasn't for the fact that they weren't positive, because they were, you know, just as positive I am, but unfortunately sometimes luck plays a huge part. And I mean, I'm not naive also enough to think that I'm fully clear. I could get scanned next month, it could be back, and it could be back into that world. So yeah, so I mean, but there's that, and then just amazing things of just which I will never come on to, but through the charity work I've done and so on, and I found like I've got a lot of good connections and made a lot of friends through that, and the support that we get is just phenomenal, really. So,
well, let's change gears. Let's get into that, because Team GDB, in the brief you sent me, some of the stuff you've made some serious cash for some charities, that I'm sure has made a massive difference. So tell us how that started first and foremost, and then we can get into some of the events.
Yeah, so the initial thing was I wanted to do a bowel cancer awareness game at Prenton Park, and I did it at Prenton Park, and it happened around the time I actually got sepsis. It was for the May time. So I organised that with the help of a guy called Jamie Conroy. We organised the event. It was like a charity football match and then guest speakers and so on. That event raised nearly £10,000. And funnily enough, I was kind of doing a lot of the organising with Jamie's help from the hospital bed as I recovered from sepsis and so on. And we had videos of support from a lot of people, like Liam Gallagher and Stephen Gerrard donated stuff for it. And like I said, we raised 10 grand. And then I just thought this will be an annual thing. And then probably a few months later, I went out for lunch or for dinner with a few mates, and I went to the toilet. When I come back, I didn't even get onto it for about 10 minutes, but they had like bright pink Team DDB t-shirts on, and they were going to run like a pretty muddy event in Birkenhead Park.
Oh, yeah.
And they were going to do it in support of me, and it was all going to go to cancer research, which I think was their event. And so, yeah, they did that. And then afterwards, I just thought, you know what, if I put that together with the nearly 10 we did from the event, that's 12 grand. You know, I could run with this on social media and just raise money. And from then, it's just snowballed. I mean, we've raised to date, we're up to about £58,500 to date. So we're getting up to 60 grand. That's just in over 2 years. It's been a good focus for me away from everything that's been going on. So when I've been having chemo, quite often I'm sat doing posts on my phone, you know, never switching off from that, because it's a good positive change up. but yeah, and then we've raised money for a lot of local cancer charities. So for Clatterbridge, we raised money. We've raised money for Maggie's, UTS Foundation, which is a gym who does. I know Evie's been on with the runs for UTS Run
so
Club.
do I. Yeah, that's how I know.
Yeah. So UTS Foundation do like support, physical support and exercise support for cancer patients. So I raise money for them. Actually, during COVID, raised nearly $7,000 for the critical care team at Arrow Park, and each member of the team got a £50 voucher, which was nice because that meant a lot to me as well. Wirral Food Banks, we did that off the back of Marcus Rashford's initiative and call for ending food poverty, and it's just, as I say, it just snowballed. And then most recently, we've done we've kind of evolved into doing a lot of random acts of kindness. So what we'll do is when we get donations, if somebody nominates someone who's going through something or has been through something and has had tough times, we'll basically pay for them to have a day out or for them to receive something. Wow. And that's just, again, that's snowballing. And a lad yesterday, Joe, he's just been to Alton Towers. He had sepsis himself and amazing but we sent him to Alton Towers Water Park. So I've just had the pictures through from that, which I've just put on our social media. So, cool. So yeah, just amazing, mate. Yeah, just really, really positive. And
I love it.
Yeah.
I wrote again, just making notes, like the positive mindset from everything you've been through. It'd be very easy to not be very easy to sit and be bitter and also totally understandable, but to create positive thought, not just for yourself but for other people, is really, really commendable. And we talked about social media.
Yeah.
Just for those listening, where can they find it?
So we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's at team.ddb, YouTube as well. So at team.ddb, and that's Delta Bravo. So come and check us out. As I say, we've got a lot of well-known faces following us and supporting us, and we've had some good video messages from the likes of Stephen Graham and Alex Ferguson. So it's just very well supported. And as I say, there's different elements to it. So there's supporting different charities, Random Acts of Kindness, which touched on, and then there's a lot around positivity and also creating awareness for bowel cancer is another key thing that we do. So we can keep ticking those boxes. Hopefully, it'll keep snowballing and keep going from strength to strength. So,
and what's next? What's the next event? What's the next plan?
So we were supposed to have a charity football game, which was for a local charity called Paul Lavelle Foundation. Mm-hmm. We were supposed to be playing them up at Heswell on the Wirral a few weeks back, but it got rained off. So we're just looking to reschedule that. More random acts of kindness. We found a few businesses coming on, supporting us, donating stuff. So we'll do that. And I mean, I've got a load of plans, and I'm always seem to be in a rush with it. I've literally just taken the last week off just to kind of have a bit of me time and slow down from it, because it can get overwhelming. But ready to go again, and hopefully brilliant.
And what do you? I'm just interested. Is that your full-time work, the Team DDB stuff?
No, so my full-time job, I work for a telecoms company called Digitel.
Right. Okay. I see.
So I do that, and that's my bread and butter. And then as a kind of hobby, I do Team DDB on the side and so on. So it's just trying to weigh up with Team DDB as to what it is and what it's going to become, really. And I think that's just something that we need to look at in the next. Because then also, if I can get a bit more support on it, because at the moment it's mostly me who's driving, which is, it's what I'm passionate about. But if I can get some help, that would help it grow as well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, there's a legacy already created, but I mean, if that can continue, and like you said, people get on board and stuff, that would be fantastic, because that random acts of kindness stuff, I love that sort of thing, and that will make a real difference. Was it like Joe yesterday? He said, well, he won't forget that for a long time.
No,
and things like that. It's not always just money donated, is it? Sometimes it's got a bit of a different thing. I think is really important. And I think it's a wonderful idea. So congratulations on all that. It's really, really cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
It was difficult actually when we were talking before this podcast about having the Legend and Loser feature. I wrote mine down, and I didn't I mean, I knew that this was going to be sort of quite an emotional podcast. And I've just realized my legend and loser are completely the opposite. So I think I'd like to change my legend and loser. So if you're happy to go along that, I'll tell you mine first, and then you can tell me yours.
Yeah, go on.
And if you want to know, I will tell you who they were going to be. My legend and loser, it can't not be. My legend is you, and the loser has to be cancer.
Yeah.
Because you have beaten countless times, countless different stage 4 and upon stage 4, upon heartbreak and be knocked down. And you're here, and all you want to do is raise money and give other people, put other smiles on other people's faces. And that is just class.
Thank you.
It's so congratulations on what you've done so far and what you will continue to do. So my legend is you, and my loser is very much cancer.
Yeah.
Have you got a legend and loser for me?
Oh God. I'm gonna say. I was gonna leave with a football one, but I've said a lot about football. I don't want to keep turning people off by promoting Man United. But
it's a nationwide podcast.
Exactly, that's what I mean. So what I'll do is I'm going to actually say Joe Strachan, who went to Alton Towers yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be my legend of the week, because he's just like, I was actually speaking with his mum, and he's just got this zest for life, and honestly, he's an absolute legend. If you can check him out, his name's Joe Pebbles on, because he did some pebbles for Team DDB, like painting them and. But honestly, he's an absolute legend, and everybody can learn. He's been through so much, and everyone can learn from him. So I'm going to say him.
What about a loser?
Oh, loser. I'm not. I feel like I've been so positive. I don't want to be too negative.
I'll tell you who mine was going to be. It might give you. Mine was going to be a guy. Well, my legend was going to be Geronimo the alpaca. This is how, like, and the guy, the alpaca that had been diagnosed twice with bovine tuberculosis and had been sentenced to death, and this morning was granted a 24-hour extension. Right. So, respect for, solidarity for Geronimo. And the loser was Miles Routledge, which was a fella who went on holiday to Kabul, right, which has obviously just become under the Taliban rule. But he was quoted, and he's actually escaped and been evacuated. But I'll read you his quote. I went to Kabul on holiday. It seems like a fairly ropey place to go on holiday, because I thought the country wasn't going to fall for at least another month. And I'm just thinking, even if you think it's going to fall in a month, I'm not going.
You're not going. It's not high on your list, is it? No, I'm not booking a weekend with the wife to the Gaza Strip. Yeah. So he was going to be my loser. So if you've got one, great. If you don't, it doesn't matter. Do you know what? I think I'll follow. After you've just said that, I'll go with him.
Miles Routledge. Yeah. The first ever double loser on the John Harris podcast. The last feature is one, in fact, that you have been a product of, is the Refer a Friend feature. Our dear friend Evie Ryan, thank you to her for putting us in touch. And it can be a person from any background. It can be from anywhere, just somebody you might think is interesting to come on the podcast from any walk of life. And if they come on, I will then when they come on the podcast, I'll then make a donation to a charity of your choice, which will of course be the DDB charity. Yeah. So if you've got to refer a friend for somebody you think would be interesting to come on the John Harris podcast, who would it be? So I'm going to say, a girl who's battled breast cancer. Sorry to go down the cancer route. Don't apologize. It's someone who's I find inspirational. She's just recently released a book, and her name's Danielle McDermott. So that's who I would recommend. And Danielle McDermott, and I can certainly put in a good word. I'm sure she'd be very keen to come on. But she's an inspirational lady, and again, just very positive. And as I say, just recently released a book, so she can get some what do they call it? Some PR for that as well. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, put me in touch with Danielle, and we'll get her on the podcast. And when she does, I'll make a donation. Listen, mate, that was fantastic. I've really enjoyed talking to you, listening to your story. Congratulations on where you are, and like long hopefully next month's scan, fingers crossed, everything crossed for you. The journey you've gone on already is crazy. And like, I feel like I'm a broken record, but what you've done and the positivity you've created from it is awesome. It's simply awesome. And these words are overused sometimes, but for yourself, and I don't want to blow too much smoke, but well done. What you're doing is amazing, and you do it all with a smile on your face, and it's outstanding. So congratulations.
Thank you, mate. And I appreciate the kind words. It means a lot.
Very welcome. So that is team.ddb. We must remember that on Instagram.
That's it. That's the one. Well, thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much for coming on the John Harris podcast.
Cheers, John.
Top man.